We are live. So I think we're live. I was having a technical issue here. So welcome to Real Estate Power Play. I am Mark Monroe. We have Marty and we have Ronnie Walker on today. Today's an exciting topic. We're going to be nailing Ronnie up with a lot of questions on Wholesaling 101. And first of all, if you're listening to one of us on one of the podcasts, please subscribe, like. We're also over on YouTube, Facebook group. Please bring your questions today, and we'll go from there. Marty, how you doing today?
I'm good, boys. I'm doing good. Yeah, we're still trying to get to spring here in Rochester, but the sun is now coming up a little earlier, staying out a little later, and yeah, it's going well. It's going well. So
we had our first bonfire last night. We got to go out, bro. We had it. Boom, first one of the season.
Lovely, love it. Very nice.
Absolutely. Mark, how you doing over there in Florida, bro?
I'm actually in Palm Desert right now. I flew back out on Sunday, so back out here. I had landed at the airport. Was driving over and we stopped and had an In-N-Out burger.
Nice. And you're going on a big trip next week, right?
Actually, yeah, I'm leaving Friday. Going down to Tahiti. So
look at that. This guy's going to Tahiti, boys.
Wow.
We're gonna have to get some pictures of out there. So you guys watching, definitely look at what Mark's doing. If you get into creative finance, which we're not talking about today, but you'll be able to take trips like Mark, the big boy.
That's right.
So how many people did you have at your bonfire there, Ronnie?
It was my family and my brother's family. So we didn't have a huge gathering. Just it was probably like 10 of us.
Oh, nice. So is your brother completely moved down now?
Not completely. We actually fly up April 3rd to Alaska, and then we're actually driving back from there. So we're going up in 2 weeks, about 2 weeks, a little over 2 weeks, and then we'll come down. But he's actually finishing up his first project with us on Courtney, and that's going to go live on the MLS this coming Monday, which is awesome.
Congrats.
And then before that one, we're actually closing on another one on Friday, and then he's going to wrap that up in the 2 weeks. It's going to be close, but he's going to get it done before he actually flies up. He's flying up the 28th, and he's going to wrap up that one. That one will go live while we're away. So
nice.
I'm excited. We're plugging away.
How long does that trip take from when you leave? In Anchorage, I'm assuming?
Yeah, we're budgeting 7 days, but we're going to try to do it in 5.
Nice. Are you taking your time stopping at a place, or are you just going to try to push it?
Not really. We got a lot going on, so we have 2 stops. So right across the border, across Alaska, there's Tok, and then you go right across the border, and in the mountains you can pull off and you can go to a hot springs. And it's like one of the nicest natural hot springs in the world. So you actually go up into the mountain and you can do the hot springs. And then we're talking about stopping at Mount Rushmore. It's like a 3-hour detour on the way back. So we're talking about doing that because I've never been there.
Very nice. I've never been there. Alaska is absolutely beautiful. It's just I was there a few years ago in the late July, and it was just weird how the sun the daylights for the whole entire day. It's like you're driving at 10:30 at night and you're exhausted, but the lighting is like 7:30 at night in the summer up there. But it's beautiful.
Yeah,
beautiful.
It just it crests behind the mountains, and you can still see it, and then it just rises. Now the winter is the complete opposite, right? The winter, it gets dark at like 3:00.
Nice. So, well, we're excited. Let's dive into this Wholesaling 101. And all of us has done wholesaling, but Ronnie, this is your main gig. This is what your main business model is, just strictly on wholesaling. And I know Marty does a little bit, but let's jump into it. Ronnie, why don't you, first of all, for people that are new, what is wholesaling?
Yeah, so wholesaling in its essence is being able to find discounted properties in the marketplace and then turn around and sell them to a cash buyer, right? There's different ways you can do that. You can either assign them from having it under contract and then assigning that contract, or you can actually close on it and turn around and close with a cash buyer. But the essence of it is finding discounted homes in your marketplace and selling them to other investors who are going to invest in the properties.
Exciting, exciting. So, Marty, I'm sure you have a question there for Ronnie. Why don't you go ahead and go shoot?
Yeah, no, I think one of the big questions that I get, and I'm sure Ronnie gets and Mark gets, is, what are the first steps?
Yeah.
So you hear about it, people get excited, but Ronnie, what are some of the first steps here?
Absolutely. So, and just to kind of give some context too, so I started wholesaling back in 2013. I was actually a private client banker at Chase, JP Morgan Chase. And I heard about this thing called wholesaling. Actually, one of my clients at Chase, he made a $3 million deposit. And he always answered my phone. So I called him up. I was like, hey, man, like, what do you do? Like, I want to know what you do because I want to make that kind of money because I'm not making that here. And he's like, I just flipped an apartment complex. And that's what the deposit was. And so we actually went out to lunch and he walked me through and he told me to join this group called Lifestyles Unlimited and in Dallas, Texas. And so Lifestyles is not a wholesaling teacher. Actually, they've transitioned their business model a lot now. But back then, they used to teach every different strategy. They mainly were rental focused or commercial. And but they had a class on wholesaling. They had this, and I didn't know anything about wholesale. I didn't even know what it was, right? And so I'm looking up Lifestyles. I'm watching some of their trainings online, and the guy mentions, "Hey, I didn't want to invest in this property. I didn't want to hold it as a rental." And the guy had 3 of them, so I was like, "Hey, why don't I just call my buddies and see if they'll buy them?" And he's like, "I went in front of a stage." And I called my buddies, and in 3 hours, I made $18,000. And I was like, whoa, what? Hold on, back up, rewind, right? And I was like, in 3 hours, I made 18 grand doing what? And so I actually emailed the guy, and he got back to me. He actually emailed me back, and he was the vice president of Lifestyles. He emailed me back. He's like, yeah, this is what it is. This is what you want to look into. And we had like an email exchange, 5 or 6 emails. And by the way, reach out to people if you're interested in stuff. Like, people get back to you, especially in today's world, like with Twitter, people are getting back to you. Anyway, so he reached back out to me and he put me on, and I started learning. And I was telling my wife about it, and she's like, "Is that a scam? Like, can you do that? Right? Like, can you make 18 grand?" Like, all I ever knew, was construction, what I grew up in, right? Which was asphalt and maintenance, paving roads. And the second thing on top of that was working at Chase, right? Being a salesman, being a sales guy and doing investments and stuff. And so, dude, I found a guy called Sean Terry, which is kind of the godfather. I found his stuff. His course was like $2,500 back then. And I had a good savings, but like $2,500 was like a massive amount to me back then. And it still is for a course today, right? But I watched his course, and it had like a ticker, like, hey, it's going to run out in a few hours. And I bought the course, and that was December 24th, 2012. I bought that course, and took me 3 months. Took me 3 months to do my first deal. My first deal should have been a $30,000 deal, but the investor screwed me over at the last minute. Told me he could only close for my contract price. I had to renegotiate, and I made $3 grand. After that, though, when I got that first check, like I got a check in the mail, it was real. It was go time. 7 months, I did 8 deals after that. I put about 60 grand in the bank. And then I created a partnership with a lawyer and another guy. And I left Chase that November of 2013. The next year of what I did, the next year we did wholesaling and owner financing. We did right under 130 homes in the next year and a half, and then I split off from that partnership and I started my own company. And then basically since then we didn't do less than about 50 deals a year over that, and that was rehabs, wholesaling, flips. And so since 2013 to today, 9 years now I've been doing this, almost 10 depending on if you count some of my initial time. I've done a little over 500 deals. About 75% of them have been wholesale transactions, and so that kind of brings me up to speed. So as far as the first step, Marty, and sorry for that long introduction there, but as far as a first step, I like to tell people when you're getting into wholesaling, there's 3 things that you really need to focus on. Okay. You need to know what you're doing, right? So you need to go out there and you need to learn what it's about. You need to gain the knowledge. Okay. The next thing you do is wholesaling is all about network. Okay. It's all about connecting with people, so you want to start connecting with service providers, title companies, cash buyers, real estate agents. You want to start connecting. And then the final step, which is the absolute most important, which is where I want to start here, is you need to get leads. And getting leads comes from marketing. Okay. And there's different types of marketing that can be done, right? There's cold calling, there's direct mail, there's SMS, there's driving for dollars, there's bandit signs, there's pay-per-click. There's lots of different marketing, but it starts with marketing. Okay. It starts with finding homes. Now, if you don't have any money, if you don't have a lot of money, you want to, the very best thing you can do, is drive around and look for vacant properties. Okay. And when you find a vacant property, write down the address, Google the address and look up the tax records, and then mail that guy something. Now there's services that can help you with that. But if you're green, you can get a deal with no money, right? By just spending the time. And
hey, Ronnie, I want to drop in there. 80% of deals come from people new in the business. That's where 80% of the deals come when the first deal go through. Just so people have an idea, and that is the best way.
80%, you said, guys, that's huge. And one of the big reasons for that, I love working with new people who are jumping in, who are diving in and have that hustle, because the deals that come from driving for dollars, they're not on any list, right? They're not on any vacant house list. They're not on any big county list. It's just a house sitting over here that's been neglected and the mailing address is the same or something. And they find that and they help that person. And guys, there's no competition there, right? So
Ronnie, I have a question. Let's dive into that about driving for dollars a little bit. What are we looking for when they're going around the neighborhood if I'm new into this?
Yeah, so depending on your neighborhood, you're looking for a home that's not taken care of. So a couple different things. One, ninja move. If it's trash day and their trash isn't out, that's a sign. If it's snowing outside and it's been a week since the snowfall and there's no traffic, that's another one. If it's the summer and the grass is overgrown, that's another one. Here's a key one, guys. Here's a really, really big one. If there's no blinds on the property, like if there's no window blinds on the inside, huge, write that address down. Notices. If you see notices taped to the door, that's another one. I also like to look for roofs that are like in big disrepair. They might not be vacant, but I do like to write down roofs that are in disrepair. Those are some lots of mail piled up, right? Junk cars in the driveway that are kind of storing there, especially if they're filling the entire driveway, not just one side, but if the whole driveway is full of junk cars, that's another one. Those are all really big signs, but that first step is getting out, and it's about having an influx of leads, right? If you can't drive for dollars, if you don't have the time, the next thing that I would recommend, if you can, if you have a little bit of money, is to do direct mail. That's what I did when I got started back in 2012. When I did my first deal, I literally just ordered a whole bunch of postcards. And when I ordered the postcards, I sent them out and I had people calling me. Now I do cold calling, I do texting, I do direct mail, I do all three. Okay. All three of them are amazing. And you want to build up to that. But before you do, you want to pick one if you're going to do outgoing messaging. But as you're getting started, guys, if you don't have any money, do the driving for dollars, or do a combination, right? Order direct mail and then go drive before you get calls. But once you get leads, you'll start being able to talk to people, right? You'll hear what people have to say. You'll be able to go, that is step number one. That is the key to this. But if you don't have leads, if you don't have people to talk to, you don't have a hobby and you don't have a business.
I know Marty does some wholesaling too. Marty, what do you do for your lead gen for getting wholesale deals in?
Yeah, so started with driving for dollars, really. And that's how you kind of learn the business. That's how you learn how to, grind, is during those moments of watch, like Ronnie said, learning through YouTube and then going to drive for dollars. I think that's like the first steps. And the one last thing I would say is, like, if you're looking at a property and it looks like the roofs are a big sign, depending on the quality of the roof, if there might be a deal there. So just keep that in mind too. How we find deals now is we're a little bit more automated at this point. So, we really depend on our online services, which may be a little bit down the road for some people, but like a prop stream. We also use List Source. That's how we pull our lists. And then from there, we are able to organize those lists through like an REI sift. That's where we're skip tracing. That's not day one stuff for people, but those are for people who do have maybe more of maybe the money side and not so much the time side. That's what you're going to want to do. You're going to want to look into a prop stream, pull the list, skip trace it with another skip trace company like a REI skip or an REI sift. And then we're immediately going into cold calling and then also text blasting those out. Yeah, absolutely. But no, Ronnie, I really, those were some super juicy nuggets that I never even heard the one about the when you're driving and if they haven't maybe, plowed recently. It's so good because you think about us upstate New York. What a great tip, man. Great.
Right. Well, and if you can find the trash routes and you figure that out and you drive down, everybody who doesn't have their trash can out, now you're going to get some people who just forgot, right? Like I forget my trash every now and again. But for the most part, if you can get the houses that don't put out their trash, that's an immediate sign nobody's there.
Yeah.
Right. Like nobody's there. And it's a killer tip. I got that at a mastermind, by the way.
Love it.
I actually use trash men as bird dogs. So they're actually out on the routes and they actually know them. So they actually feed me deals as well. So that's another good nugget. So, but Ronnie, why would a seller sell like on a wholesaling model? Why would somebody even want to do that?
Yeah, so we fit as wholesalers, and this can kind of be a sticky topic, especially if you start, you're new and you're getting started, and you start talking to agents. And actually, I have I got a buddy of mine that was with me and kind of learned the wholesaling and went off and became an agent. And it's funny how all of a sudden you go to this other side, right? Like all of a sudden it's like, oh, wholesalers are, they're bottom feeders and they're this and that. They're just trying to get cheap properties. And really what we're looking for is we fit a very specific niche. And that niche is people who have real estate problems, right? People who have big problems. And so when you think about a vacant house that's in repair, like when you think about an agent doesn't want a house that's falling apart. They don't want to list that, right? Like that is not their forte. That is not the clients they're building their business on. What are they going to do with that? They need another investor to buy that house in order to turn around and make it a better house in the neighborhood. They need to take this house that there's people living in it and drugs are going through it and bad stuff is happening, and to turn it around and make it a better property in the area. So the people that we are helping are typically going through one of three types of scenarios. Okay. They are either in financial distress. Okay. Which means they need the money for some reason. They missed their mortgage payment. They're not paying. They don't have the money for repairs. There is some type of money issue going on that prevents them. They bought a house to rehab it and they ran out of money. They have a second home after they moved out and they rented it out and they can't upkeep that property with that tenant in place, right? There is a financial issue. The second type of houses that we're looking for are people or houses that are in physical distress, right? Which means it needs a lot of work, right? It needs a lot of work. They don't want to hire out. They maybe have hired it out and got ripped off. There is physical condition problems that has to be addressed, and they either don't want the time, they don't want to spend the time doing it. They don't want the hassle of going through that process, and they'd like a quick sale to an investor. And then the third type of problem that these people are running into that we're working with, which is actually the most common, is usually circumstantial. And you could argue that circumstantial is all of them, but circumstantial could be like, you know, my son was living in the property for a couple of years and I had to evict my son and he ruined the property. We just bought a house like this and he ruined the property and got into drugs and his girlfriend did blank. And it's in a really emotional situation. And we just want an easy, I don't want to come in here and fix it up. I don't want to see the house. She didn't even want to go to the house afterwards. And so that's an example of circumstantial. Another one is inheritance. Divorce is a circumstantial. Probate, pre-probate, which is a type of inheritance, right? So these are all different types of circumstances that people find themselves in that they want to sell to an investor. And guys, I think, I don't remember the statistics, so don't, but I think it's like close to 40% of all home sales go to cash buyers, right? Like our option for people of providing a simple, easy transaction, as much as, you know, top real estate agents or, you know, other people might say, oh yeah, like, why would you do that? Why not get the top price you can? The reality is, and I think all of us are this way, if it can save us time and it's easy, we want that, right? Even if, think of trading in your car, you know, you can get more money if you sell it yourself. And yet every single time you buy a new car, you trade it in. Why? Because it's easy. Right? It saves you time. You get a new car at the place. You get money when you're done. These are the people we're looking to help, is people who want an easy transaction and that they want to save time and they want to be able to put a little bit of cash in their pocket and they're not looking to rehab it or maximize the home. That's our ideal client. And then there's a variety of that. I actually drill down a little bit more, but that's
Ronnie,
who we're looking to help.
Wait a second. You're doing great. And this is so good in regards to, I mean, he's just ho-humming on all the stuff that's just insane. But for new investors, right? That's who we're talking to. I know a lot of you that are listening are going, who's going to want to do this? Who's going to want to sell their house to me in this type of way? Guys, all the time. This is what happens all the time. And I think we don't think of it like that. And I think because people haven't had to go through a situation where it's put you in a position where you kind of needed to sell. And guys, it happens all the time. People don't want people walking through their house. Simple as that.
Well, and I think another thing, Marty, on top of that is, I think a lot of us think people are unreasonable when we're talking to them, right? Like, why in the world would they do this, right? That's a limiting belief in our own mind. And I'll give you an example. The other day, I bought a house on Pine Street in Allegan, Michigan. And I called the guy. Actually, we sent him a text and he called me, right? He immediately called. He didn't even respond to the text. And he's like, you know, I don't think I'm the right guy that you're looking for. And I was like, yeah, no problem. And we were talking and he's like, I got about 3 weeks left to finish this up. And I'm doing this and I'm doing this. And actually, I'm going to Florida. And then I've got a real estate agent going to come out. We're going to list it for, you know, like 115. And I was like, okay, cool. Like if, you know, we're probably not the right option based on what you're saying, but would you sell it for cash? And he's like, yeah, I'd love that. Like, I'd love to just, I was like, okay, well, do you have a price in mind? Like, what would you do? He's like, I'd probably take 80. Like right then, that's $35,000, by the way. So I looked it up. I had a 145 ARV on the property, right? So I'm like, okay, well, we can talk at 80. So if I could do 80, like what else needs to be done? We walked through the condition, we did that. I was like, you know what? I think I can do 80. A week later, I had a buyer at 100,000 already. Now the buyer did. I actually sold it sight unseen to the buyer. I had a little bit of a stuff. The buyer came back and tried to renegotiate, which I'm not going to get into the thing. He was going to walk away and leave his deposit. We ended up coming down, pulled it back to 86. I went back to the guy because there was some stuff he didn't share, like the roof was rotting in the underneath, and so we ended up getting a reduction. I was like, "Hey, man, this is a $12,000 issue," and he's like, "Well, you know more about me. Honestly, if I could get 72,000, I'd be happy." And so we did it for 72, and we did the deal. Right? We closed the deal. Now that's exactly what happens most of the time. It's not this crazy hard negotiation. Like a lot of us think when we think of being a good negotiator, it's all back and forth and I get them to come to my price, right? A lot of it is just like, what do you think is fair? You know, like, would you do here? Hey, I'm not really willing to do that. Would you do blank? Hey, you know, I can't really make money on that. In order for me to make money, I'd have to be here, but I don't know if you'll do that. And that's really the step 2 of the process though, right? Once you get incoming people from the marketing, which you need to drum up business, right? You need to drum up to have enough leads. Then it's about talking to people, and it takes about 40 to 70 people to talk to get your first deal, right? Like maybe not your first deal. That's my average, right? Between 40 and 70 people we talk to, we get a property under contract. But that's how many incoming leads you want, right? Like if you have, it's not just driving around seeing 70 houses, it's having 70 people call you, or it's having 70 people say, yeah, I'm interested. Like, let's talk. And once you do that and you unpack, Marty, don't have the mindset that people are unreasonable. Have the mindset that I'm looking for a certain type of person, right? I'm looking for the guy who wants to sell to an investor. Like, hey, do you want to sell? No? All right, cool. No problem. Is there any other way I can help you? No? All right, cool. Have a good day.
Nice. So so the bottom line is you're really solving the seller's problem, and doing so you're being paid for it. So that's really what it comes down to. I really want to take it to another area now. Now that you have a property from a motivated seller, let's discuss and jump into this and spend some time about working with buyers. I know both you just mentioned in the beginning, Ronnie, your first deal that the buyer took advantage of you, and Marty and I just talked before we went live about a wholesale model that he's doing with the buyer. And I want to jump into it a little bit with Marty as well. But Ronnie, why don't you talk a little bit about buyers, and then we'll go and ask Marty about his buyer too.
Yeah. So the wholesaling, guys, is a 3-step process. It's 1, it's getting leads. 2, it's working acquisitions. And 3, it's finding a buyer that will buy that house. And that's this process, right? It's not just finding, but really selling it to a cash buyer. Excuse me. Got the hiccups. So as far as buyers go, you're looking for the guys who are investing in your local area, right? Those are the guys you want to connect with. I would say first, if you're new, I wouldn't even worry about buyers, guys. Like seriously, I wouldn't even worry about buyers. What I would do is I would connect with your best friends who are other wholesalers. I'd connect, figure out what they're doing, and be like, hey, if I get a property, can we work out a deal where you sell it for me, right? And in today's world, people aren't, like you could do a 50-50 split. You could work out something else. Other people do different splits, right? Some people do it for a few $1,000s. Some people want $5,000, right? Like it just depends on what they want. So just call them up and be like, hey, if I get a deal, like what are buyers buying today? And then ask them, like, what are they buying at? Because I can tell you right now, guys, buyers are buying properties at different numbers in Grand Rapids, Michigan than they are in Dallas, Texas. Okay. I got 2 deals in Dallas, Texas, and I've got 5, 7 in the Grand Rapids area going right now. The buyer model, I literally just pushed out a property yesterday, and I had an offer come back at like way under what I wanted for it. And it doesn't, like, I'm just like, you know what? I'm going to flip it myself, right? If I flip it, I'm going to make 60 grand. I just got 5 projects going right now. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, I'm not going to take, a smaller amount when I know there's money there. But that's the difference. Like in DFW, there's a lot more competition. And so people are willing to buy at 85, 90 cents on the dollar. And there's also hedge funds and stuff that you can work with and sell to. So tip number 1, connect with other wholesalers and use them to sell your property initially. Also, pro tip, as soon as you try to get out from other wholesalers, you will be guilted. Okay. Pro tip here. I've done this. I've done this at least 5 times. Okay. As soon as you try to sell properties on your own, that other wholesaler is going to feel threatened. Why don't you just use me, man? Oh yeah, do this. Don't call my people, blah, blah, blah. Are you trying to go behind my back? All that stuff, right? When you do your business, it always happens. But just let them know. Just be like, hey man, I want to work together. I'm trying to build my business as well. Let's figure out a way to work together. But it's okay to use them and then go out and find your own buyers and then work with those buyers and build a relationship, right? And work together. So that would be my my thing. Marty, what about your side on buyers, bro? I know you're a buyer.
Yeah, and that's what makes it pretty simple. Is I'm a buyer and I know who the other buyers are because they're my peers in my community. So, where do you find buyers? Like Ronnie said in the beginning, a lot of it's through networking. A lot of it's going to be through going to those association, like those real estate investor association meetings. It's putting yourself out there. It's texting people in your phone. Hey, do you know anybody that's in real estate that is, a flipper or that is someone who's buying rentals, and asking people, right? You got to really rely on people in this beginning stage because they're going to help you, so they're going to want to see that if you're someone who's, hungry and really pushing, people like that. And they want to help people who are really trying. They really want to see that if you are trying, people are going to point you in the right direction. I really believe that. People want to help people who want to help themselves. So yeah, I think a key way to do that though is really starting to put yourself out there, putting it on Facebook. There's a lot of wholesalers right now, a lot of investors who don't even put stuff on social media. And that's up to them. They want to keep that private. That's fine. But if you really want it, that's what it's for. It's to market. It's to tell people what you're doing. So if you're going to tell people about your dog, you might as well tell them that you're an investor. A lot of people don't think that they're ready for that. They don't think that they, deserve that. Guys, if you're thinking about investing and you're reading about it and you're learning about it, you're an investor. You're investing your time into learning. So put it out there and let people know. And I bet you someone's going to say or reach out and say, hey, not me, but Marty, he's always posting videos and doing all this crazy stuff. You guys should probably connect. And boom, you've just found a buyer. So that's how I would start.
I think that's great.
Now, Ronnie, I want to ask this question too. I think you even mentioned this one time because I was looking for a buyer virtually in another area, and you gave a huge, power move, if you will, about jumping onto PropStream and looking for buyers or cash buyers that way. Why don't you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so you can find cash buyers on PropStream. The tip that I mentioned, so if you actually go to Propelio, if you pull up Propelio, you can actually see buyers that have bought multiple times, and you can see the price points in which they bought. So if you go to Propelio.com, you get a subscription there. I don't remember how much it is. I think it's like $89 a month. It pulls cash buyers all over the nation. And you can pull their information, and you can see people who bought more properties than just one property in the area. And you can try to reach out to them that way and skip trace them. A better solution that now I haven't actually purchased this yet, but I know some guys who have, and they say it's awesome and highly recommended, is investorlift.com. So if you go to InvestorLift, it's like $6,000, so it's a pretty penny if you want to do it. But if you sell it to one buyer, it's there. But they actually go through all of the public sale data all over the country, and they see who all the actual buyers were on the public records, and then they cross-reference that and find out who the top purchasers are and create a list per city. I believe it's either per city or per county, and they will list that, and then they actually skip trace. I think the way it works is if it's been skip traced before, they will put that person's personal cell phone number in there. And so it's supposed to be a really, really good service where it comes in. I've thought about getting it, but my market's fairly small, and we already plug away. But the more that I'm scaling out, I'm thinking about getting that service. But if you're in a bigger area like Dallas, like New York, like Florida, would highly recommend it, especially if you're new. If you can drop $5,000, $6,000, you can do that, and that's you can immediately jump into the cash buyers. And now it's just about your ability to create a relationship, your ability to talk to these people and really find out what do they want, so you can tee up the property to what they want. And that's really what it looks like is, hey, do you believe this property can make money? Okay, cool. Here's a property.
Nice. The other place that I'd highly recommend now that we're getting past the pandemic is your local meetup. Go to your local meetup groups, and in there you'll actually start meeting cash buyers. That's a great place. And if you're not sure where to find a local meetup group in the area, you can go to meetup.com or Meetup app. And also I'd recommend biggerpockets.com. They have a whole section there for your local meetup. So I highly recommend that.
And in local meetups, the other thing is when you're there, they want to connect with wholesalers, right? And they want to connect with new wholesalers. And here's the thing, as a new wholesaler connecting with a buyer, not only will they do what they can to help you get the deal done, but for them, they see it as, oh, I'm gonna be able to help this guy get into the business so he can feed me properties, right? And the way that buyers are looking at it is, I might get 1 to 3 properties from this guy. That's how a buyer thinks, right? If you can outpace that and outperform that, all the better. But just know they're hoping from a new person, from a new wholesaler getting into the business, they're thinking, hey, I'm going to get 1 to 3 properties out of this wholesaler that are going to be deals that are going to be home runs for me. And most flippers are trying to do, if they're doing this full time, they're trying to do 15 to 35 deals a year. And just 30 deals a year at a $30,000 profit for them is $900,000. Okay. So when you're thinking about where their brain is at, that's what they're trying to accomplish. Hey, if I can do 30 deals, I can build 10 relationships with 10 new wholesalers this year. I'm going to get 1 to 3 properties from them. I'm going to get between 10 and 30 properties from new wholesalers with a profit of around $30,000. They make almost $1 million, and you get to help them do that.
Very nice. I want to ask both of you guys this next question. We'll start with Marty, and then we'll go to Ronnie. So for somebody new in this business, it seems like some of these investors take advantage of wholesalers for the first deal, just like what you did happened to you, Ronnie. But Marty, how do you prevent that? Like if you're new at this and you have a wholesale deal, you have a great deal, and you bring it to an investor, like what's the best way of somebody to kind of protect it so they don't end up in that same situation?
Work with someone that is trustworthy. And how do you really find that out? Well, talk to other wholesalers. Hey, thinking about working with Marty. Have you worked with him before? And if you have, how was it working with him? It really can be that simple, truthfully, Mark.
And how do I find other wholesalers?
Yeah, I think, again, this might be because it just seems like common sense, but you're going to see people like on different social media groups that are they're the ones that are continuously posting deals. So those are the guys that if you're a wholesaler and you're brand new and you see people that are continuously posting deals or someone who's continuously flipping houses, reach out to those guys or girls and say, hey, I'm brand new. I am wholesaling. I'm looking for, a buyer who I can send these deals to. Who do you suggest working with? And again, if you're reaching out to another wholesaler, they're may keep that from you. They may want to hold their buyers tight. Again, that's where Ronnie said, hey, you might want to just JV with somebody who's already doing a lot of the deals to kind of, find that out, kind of work that through. But yeah, listen, if someone's out there and they're presenting themselves as a buyer and they're, posting the videos and they're branding themselves, geez, like you got a lot to lose on that guy. Like if the last thing I would want to do is to do anything like that where it's going to hurt my, my image really, right? Because I'm trying to build this up. I'm trying to build this trust in this group that we have of the Upstate New York Real Estate Investor Group. Last thing I want to do is just try to, take $1,000 or $2,000 from somebody because, like it's not worth it for me. So kind of like, oh, that's a thought process that of a person who I'd want to work with, someone who it's just not worth it for them. They would want to lose their trust from people. So yeah, just try to find somebody that is doing it, talk to them. Guys, 90% of the time, people are going to tell you, hey, because mention the buyers, right? So if you find a wholesaler and you could say, I've seen Marty does a lot of flips, or I've seen, Ben and Chris. And how are those guys? Are those guys you'd work with? Oh, I wouldn't work with Chris, but I would work with Marty, or I'd work with Ben, right? So you kind of can get a feel for it right then and there. But anyways, that's something that might help people.
I love that. Good stuff, man. Good stuff.
I was going to ask, all right, as a newbie wholesaler, why don't you guys dive in a little bit and explain actually how they make money when you actually have a seller and a buyer? I think they call it, the assignment fee and like double closing. And then also we should bring to people's attention in some of these states that Ronnie's going to talk about assignment fees, that they're starting to push some regulations where you have to be a licensed real estate agent. So then you have to do what's called a double closing. And Ronnie, why don't you kind of give a little bit of overview of what that is?
Yeah, I think we'll back up a little bit. So when you're pushing out this property as wholesaling, okay, you make your money. Your money is the difference between what your contract price is with the seller and what your contract sale price is with the buyer. That's the wholesaler's profit, right? So if you're able to put a property under contract with a seller for $60,000 and you're able to find a buyer for $74,000, you make $14,000. Okay, that's your profit. Now that's minus the marketing cost it took to get that deal. Okay, this is what a lot of people don't. This is what a lot of cash buyers don't think about. Okay, cash buyers have no marketing costs unless they're doing direct to seller. Okay, but you have a cost. And right now, depending on where you're at, it's between $1,400 and $5,000 to find a deal. Just FYI, in today's market, that's what it costs. If you're doing driving for dollars, it's less. But if you're doing direct mail and some other things, so that's how you're gonna make your money. Now you can make your money where you turn around and sell it and buy it and put it on the MLS, right? Like that's a possibility. And you make more. You could turn around and sell it to a hedge fund if there's a hedge fund buying in your area. That's a way to make more. There you can skip the investor and you can go right to a retail buyer. This is how, when you hear people and you're looking and people say, hey, I made $30,000, I made $50,000, I made $102,000. It's either they did a really expensive house, so they did like a $700,000 property, right, that they wholesaled, or they did a commercial property, or they sold it to a hedge fund. And being able to work with wholesalers who work with hedge funds can get you into those prices and or finding those hedge funds. Now, one of the things that I want to emphasize what Marty said is find guys who are good guys. Like find dudes who are good guys. Like seriously, find the guys that you can connect with. And here is something. I don't want to step on any toes, but I'm going to. Here's something that I personally absolutely hate is buyers will ask you, what do you have it under contract for? They will ask you that. It is okay for you to turn around and say, it is okay for you to say, I am not going to share that. You can absolutely say that. I say that all the time. I was a jerk to a guy just the other day. He offered me, I was like, what? And I was like, hey, I'm not looking for you to be generous towards me if my price is high. And I'm not looking for you to, maybe think, he's got it for 20 grand, whatever. Just let the numbers work for you. That is okay. If you do not feel comfortable and you don't want to negotiate that, which I am one of those people, it is okay for you to say, hey, I'm not going to share that. And you can do it really nice. Hey, I'm not going to share that. That's something I'm not really interested in. And they might get kind of taken back, but it's something to think about. Now, as far as Regulation, I'm not really going to get into that. I don't know enough about the regulation in different areas because I'm not going into a lot of the stuff. There's other stuff I'd recommend people research. I do know if you're in St. Louis and if you're in Chicago, you need to look at that and look at some options.
Very nice. I know Marty's going to jump off here in a minute, so we're going to let Marty kind of say his last words here. Marty, go ahead.
Well, I think part of the deal is you got to find buyers and you got to find sellers. I think a lot of people spend a lot of their time, guys, when you're new, trying to build a buyer's list, and then you're trying to create your website, and then you're trying to get your business cards, and that's just, it's not necessary, guys. It's just stuff that's going to keep you busy, and it stops you from really what you need to do, which is finding sellers that need to sell. So I would double down on your marketing because the buyers will come if you have a good deal. They just will. And you'll be able to sell stuff really easily once you find that deal. So I just see so many people that begin they begin with finding a buyer's list. They get the emails and they do nothing with them. I don't know how many times I've been put on buyer's lists and I've never heard from that person again. So I would, instead of wasting your time doing that, I would just focus on the sales part. The dispo, there is techniques to it. Okay. And I didn't know what dispo was for a while. It's disposition, but the dispo is something that you can kind of figure out. And it's something that is actually kind of simple. The buyers will really kind of dictate for that. And you can really move things pretty quickly. Guys, number one is getting the deal. So that's what I'm going to leave you with. I hope you guys have a great day. Thanks, Ronnie and Mark. We'll see you soon.
Marty, you take care. We're pretty much done. We're going to be wrapping this up right now. Ronnie, what about your last words?
Yeah, I would say, guys, wholesaling is very, very simple. Okay. That's why I love it. Honestly, that's why I love it. I think it's simple. I think it's easy. What you're doing is you're finding deals, you're gaining knowledge, you're talking to sellers, and you're selling it to a cash buyer, right? Like that's what it is. You don't have the rehab, you don't have the construction, you don't have a lot of that. It's very simple. But here's a pro tip: is it's also very, very stressful. It is the hardest simple thing you're going to do because you're going to be hit with all kinds of stuff from the buyer, and then you're going to get hit with all kinds of stuff, and you are going to be the rock in the hard place. That's not a bad thing. You just got to know what you're getting into, okay? Because there's a lot of money here where you can market and you can be the most valuable guy in your city by finding the deals. If you specialize in finding deals, like that's what I've made my focus for almost 10 years, is to be the guy who can find the deals, right? That's super valuable. But understand, as soon as you step into a wholesale scenario, you're going to have buyers asking you questions. You're going to have seller asking you questions, and you're going to have to get really good at navigating. This guy wants blank. This person wants blank. This person doesn't want to do blank. This person wants it. And how can you work that together? And I was working with a wholesale. I just bought a deal, right, that I'm flipping. And the wholesaler almost walked away from $40,000, right? I paid a $40,000 assignment fee. The wholesaler almost walked away from it because it was so stressful, right? It was like close, like blah, 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 like this. It can be stressful, but it can be life-changing money. And it's very, very simple. Find the deal, talk to sellers, sell it to a buyer, and you guys can make life-changing money.
No, I like wholesaling. I do I'd say about 15% of my deals are wholesaling deals, but my stuff I like to hold and do the passive income. But this is a great topic. If anybody has any questions, reach out to us through our Power Play pages, through YouTube, Facebook. If you have any more questions, you want to know more about wholesaling, you can definitely reach out to Ronnie. His bio is in one of the profiles on our YouTube page. Also, please subscribe to us on one of your favorite podcasts. And if any other questions, feel free to reach out. But this has been great. Thanks so much, Ronnie. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you, Mark. You guys have a good day.
Take care, guys.